The subject of trust was brought to my mind by the Soul Matters theme. That is the Soul Matters theme for this month, and I find it interesting that trying to follow what the theme of the Soul Matters group is stimulates my mind to think about subjects that I otherwise would not. I would not naturally, at this season in our political life, think about trust. But it is a core issue. I've done quite a bit of counseling over the years with couples, for example, and it is always the case that a capacity for trust is a central, if not the central, factor. I've worked with quite a few congregations, and I can say, without hesitation or ambiguity, that trust is the coin of the realm. That if there is trust, miracles can happen. If there is no trust, people are really just rearranging the seats on the Titanic. Nothing is really happening. One of the great blessings of this congregation is that you have trust. And I must say that I don't know if it grows out of you, but I think to a very large extent you have trust here because of the 16-year ministry that preceded the interim ministries here and laid a foundation of trust. And that's a great blessing. And every single candidate for this church I talk to, I tell them that. And I say, look, congregations have different strengths and weaknesses, but this congregation has trust, and that is a precious resource. And I think they get the message because I hammer it home again and again, whether they want me to or not. Trust is a belief in the reliability, the integrity, and the ability of someone or something to do something. Trust involves a forward-looking gaze with the belief that, yes, this person will deliver. They will not disappoint. Trust, alas, also involves vulnerability. If we extend our trust to others, there's nothing in this universe that tells us that they will not betray, either intentionally or unintentionally, the trust that we have extended to them. The philosopher Ann Beyer, in fact, defines trust as a willingness to be vulnerable to others because it involves always a degree of risk that we will be disappointed. But without trust, it becomes difficult, if not impossible, to make decisions, form alliances, collaborate effectively. Trust allows societies and organizations, and certainly congregations, to function smoothly. Martha Newbaum, in one of her books, wrote, "Trust requires a willingness to be vulnerable, and trust in turn enables cooperation in community. It is both a moral necessity and a practical requirement for social life, for marriages, for society, for congregations, for every network of relationships that we're part of." But it just so happens to be the case that we live in a period of time that is awash in distrust. Robert Putnam saw it emerging long ago. In 2000, he wrote the book Bowling Alone, in which he explored the decline of social trust in the U.S., and he argues that a decrease in social trust leads to a decline in political participation and civic involvement, which in turn weakens the bonds of community. Putman stated in his book, Social Capital, the networks, the norms, and the trust that enable participants to act together is the key to our social well-being. For Putman, the impact of trust extends beyond the personal realm to include health of democratic systems. High levels of social trust contribute to greater social cohesion, political stability, and the functioning of democratic institutions. What Putman was describing in 2000, what he saw unfolding, has come to pass in spades. His writing now seems like prophecy. In the last 10 years, in my work as a minister, in my observations as a citizen, I have seen signs that social trust is eroded continually. During COVID, there was a breakdown in social trust. There were literally people running around in the tens of millions saying that the experts telling them about their health were trying to abuse them or speaking to them falsely. The political divisions that we saw in 2000 have only grown more intense. One thing that I find amazing is the erosion of trust in news sources and the rise of alternative news sources that have no relationship to truth whatsoever. The utter lack of political groups to cooperate is as amazing as it is shameful. Antagonistic language permeates all political discourse. We are living in a society right now where trust is under attack. Indeed, it's probably more appropriate and accurate to say that there are little bits of pieces of trust throughout our community, throughout our nation, but they are under attack. Distrust is the water in which we swim. I was thinking recently about the issue of trust as it pertains to this congregation right now. Consider this. Someone will soon arrive at your congregation, will walk through those doors, will stand up before you, and they are going to bring their spouse or their loved ones or their family with them. They are going to travel from another part of the country. They are going to commit their future to you. And that action is based on trust. Trust that the people of this congregation and the community will support their ministry through gifts and through emotional and mental support. They are extending their trust to you in multiple ways as they enter their ministry here. They trust that they will find a receptive home here. They trust that what they hope for and what they envision and the dreams of their heart and their mind will be possible here. Now, if you think about it, this is a big leap of faith. I have been in this situation, so I know whereof I speak. I also thought about trust as I helped construct this year's budget. As part of our new governance structure, the original writing of an aspirational budget comes from the senior minister, as it should in all well-functioning churches. And as I thought about this budget, and as I talked to numerous people about this budget, it came to me, as it has come to me every year in which I have engaged in this process, that this whole thing is a great act of trust. We are about to enter a phase of church life where people will make pledges. But pledges are simply the promises people make to support the church financially. If people fail to pledge, that is their privilege. We don't deputize someone to go run after them and get them to write their check. If people make a pledge but fail to pay their pledge, that is the way the cookie crumbles. Think for a moment. I beg you to think for a moment in the vulnerability inherent in our collective life. Do you see how our system is based on trust, not just in an abstract way, but in a highly tangible way? It really helps us all understand that what we are engaged here right now, each one of us in our own way, is a collective experiment in the possibilities of trust. Years ago, I was out in the Pacific Northwest. I was called to a congregation, and after I had been there a couple of months, the treasurer pulled me aside. And one thing you learn as a minister is nobody knows anything about the budget of a church except maybe the treasurer and one other person. But the treasurer pulled me aside and said, "Hey, Ed, I needed to tell you that our budget, our pledge versus our budget is $50,000 short. But we knew when you got here, it would all be better and things would work out." And they did. But we're not going to do that here this year. Right? Right? We're going to have a solid financial basis for the incoming minister who is themselves making a great leap of faith. They're not going to tell you, "Oh my God, I'm taking a leap of faith," but they are. Our world needs, as never before, the reality and the experience of trust. We need, as a society, to generate circles of trust, pockets of community where trust can flourish. May we all be aware of the sacred responsibility we have to create and maintain circles of trust so that our individual and collective lives may flourish and our society may be nurtured by what we do.